rushed into surgery. So
Dude, you have a flesh-eating disease and you're just chilling on your chair? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Gosh, you know what sucks? When you see your father work his ass off. But I never heard anyone that had their dad worked themselves to death before. But yeah, I mean, I'm down to hear his story. Shit.
I watched my father work for everybody else for his entire life, only to spend his entire life savings on medical bills just to wind up dying in the
Uh,
torturous worst way possible.
Here's the thing about going to the hospital. Don't pay your medical bills. If if it's like a big fat bill, don't pay it. Have your money, give your money to someone else that you trust. If you have no one else that you trust, then hide your money. Take your money out of the bank and then put it in a barrel and hide it in the desert. Don't pay hospital bills.
We're going to discuss that in today's video. Well, this is the story of not the average typical American hero that you typically hear about. You averagely hear the person that risked it all and made it out on top with, we like to hear it's grit and determination and hard work and determination, but in reality, it's actually a good majority of luck. And the average American, which
True. I know a few people that scored big on the stock market. Now they're multimillionaires. And if you ask any business owners, they say, "Oh yes, you gotta risk. You gotta risk yourself."
the stories you don't hear about are the ones that risked it all, tried it all, and still ended up flunking, failing, and ending up upside down. And that is the story of a lot of Americans after the 2008 crisis and even the recent pandemic and the sort of inflation, deflation that we've seen of the dollar over the course of the last few years or a decade or so. Now, my dad grew up in what you would think is be one of the best times to be alive in America. He actually was making around 100K a year
Mm.
back. Well, he actually wasn't even, a single child. He actually was like me. He was one of the younger children in his family, so he had a lot to live up to. He really had a lot to prove himself with through his family. His older brother joined the services, and being in the Navy, he definitely had to put himself to work if he wanted to remain back here in the States. So he put himself straight into work. He went to college for a couple years. He became a printer, and he worked for a company called Jab Solson. Well, he worked very hard. He ended up manning a four-person team, and he was a manager or supervisor of sorts. And he made around 100K a year back in the early 2000s, which is an absurd amount of money.
It's not absurd, but it's pretty good. If it's a middle state, then that's pretty damn good.
It's probably about double that, if not more, if you want to talk about the value of those dollars compared to what you'd be able to buy um, for that set amount of money in today's market. Now, with all that being said, he was working nonstop. This is someone who I never really saw too much for the majority of my life. Now, although my father was one of the most hardest working men I ever knew, he had his own demons that he fought. And just like everybody else amongst America, what are the typical vices that you fall into? It's
Alcohol?
substance abuse.
Ah,
Now, we like to blame the individual for partaking in these measures and saying, like, well, how could they do this? I mean, everybody knows drugs and drinking is bad. We all know that this is something that leads to a bad route and can just not only harm yourself, but the people around you and the overall life that you built up for yourself and everybody alongside yourself as well, like we just stated. Well, my dad also grew up back in the 70s and 80s, where the whole, hippie rock and roll,
acid.
long hair, we were screwing girls in our van. This is the lifestyle that they lived back in the day. There wasn't all these laced or pressed pills now like there is now. You could actually go to the local park after school or skip school, get high off a couple different drugs, and still enjoy your day. Now, this might not seem like the average lifestyle today, and I know this is definitely something that I guess looked down upon, but you have to think back in the 70s and 80s, the whole Woodstock era, this was a lot more common. And what do kids do these days?
Damn, I wish I was born in that era. Just get high on shrooms or something and just bang people in buses.
Hell, they vape, they do the galaxy gas, they drink, they smoke, they do things they shouldn't be doing. We all know that pills and all these drugs are still commonly used amongst adolescent youth, and whether it's commonly prescribed or a good recommended thing for people to partake in, it is used and partaken in nonetheless. Now, with all that being said, my dad was an active user of all these things, and throughout his time, he actually got his life together. He was a real family man. He definitely got himself together over the course of years having children, and over
Oh,
the
okay.
course of raising a family and being the main sole provider of the household, of about a five-person household with a whole house. This is back when it's more accessible to be able to put yourself in a house. This was a different type of lifestyle back then. With all that being said, he found himself in 2008 crisis being laid off, which then led him to not really know what to do. Now he built up all this,
Depression.
sources of income that he had for himself, and now they're kind of getting taken away from them, like many people experienced back in these times, and he didn't really know what to do. Well, like many people, he dove straight into the substances that many people are advertised with. It's brought to you in every sports game. It's brought to you in pretty much every single get together.
Alcohol, right? If I don't get why people would support a celebrity when they advertise their own alcohol, right? You have, was it Jay-Z or something that has his own tequila? Oh, The Rock. The Rock has his own tequila, and this guy is supposed to be a fitness influencer. He would showcase his exercise, and he would tell people to be healthy, and then he goes on and sell alcohol. It's it's grift. I would call it grift.
It's drinking. Drinking is something that many people fall into. I have many friends who have myself, many family members who still partake in addiction, still to this very day. Now, this is something that over the course of time wasn't exactly the death of my father, but definitely partaken in the troubling relationship with him. My mother, I wouldn't say he was an overall abusive drunk, but he was definitely a different person when he was drunk versus when he was
Uh,
sober. Not really.
that's always fascinating. I never believe in. I always think that alcohol brings out the true you, because if people know that they change when they drink alcohol, but when they keep going back to alcohol knowing that it makes them, belligerent or evil, then they probably like that side more about them than they do when they're sober.
Remembering what he was doing, and definitely scary of some source when I was young, which is just an honest proposal of myself of what I remember being under the age of 10 in the single digit age groups. But now, with all this being said, my father ended up having a lot of medical issues throughout his life. With the states, and a lot of the genetical issues, a lot of the genetic issues that people just end up facing throughout time. You don't really know what you're going to die with, and I get kind of criticized for being a more negative doomer lifestyle. But I also saw a video the other day that kind of reaffirmed why my stance is somewhat critical thinking instead of just wonders and doomer mentality.
Mm.
And if your life has always kind of been doom and gloom, if you only ever really seen the disparity of life and have it actually hit you in the losses versus the rewards, you want to look at life as more of a doom and gloom mentality. You're not really going to see the sun; you're going to see the clouds,
Yep.
and that's kind of where I sit in a lot of the time. Now, not only did my mother raise me to look at the negative before the positive and always try to prepare yourself for the worst outcome, but also it just seems to be what always seems to happen for myself. So it's not only something to prepare for, it's something that just seems to be the typical route of life. Now, as negative as that sounds, let's continue with the story of my father. Now, with him being laid off, him divulging into these substances, of course, he found other work and wasn't necessarily his higher up job with the higher up pay. Imagine having to jump back down from that higher up pay, and now you have to work more and more and more. And then now with the health issues, he had a psoriasis, which is scabs all over your body.
Oh,
This is very a severe thing for him.
I have people telling me that they have psoriasis, and then they show me, right, and it's just a bit of dry skin, like that's within a square inch of something. I'm like, that ain't psoriasis. You have not seen psoriasis, okay? That's like early stages of eczema, and they like to victimize themselves and say they have psoriasis. Dude, if you ever seen psoriasis at a real level, it is bad, okay? You look like a tree when you have psoriasis.
You go to the bar, people make fun of him, and I know men have to deal with that, but it was something that he definitely had to deal with, and it was very bad. It would itch it, it would get worse, it would scab up, and it would was all over his body. Psoriasis is a skin disease. Some of you might know about it. If not, you can do your research. And then eventually, he also had boils all over his body. So mind you, he was
Oh,
deer hunting back around 2009, 2010, and he had a necrotizing fasciitis, which is a flesh-eating disease that infected his boil in his groin region. It was around his ass cheek, and so he was sitting at home. He was stuck at home in most extreme pain, not realizing his flesh is being eaten from the inside out. And now he's sitting in this house, thinking to himself, I'm just going to die here. All this that I worked for, am I going to go and am I going to go to the hospital? Am I going to spend every single penny that I worked for? Because we all know that even with the health insurance, it only covers so much, and you can only be out of your job for so long before they replace you, and it doesn't really seem to work like the old times. General health pensions don't really exist. Employers don't really care about their employees, and without the GoFundMe and the overall support from the overall community, which is other people who are probably struggling if they were to find themselves in these similar positions, who can relate and actually understand, it is a hit or miss in these certain situations. Well, my dad actually did end up going to the hospital after sitting on his recliner chair, the old recliner chair that men would come home after work and
Uh,
open a cold one, crack open a cold one, and watch the sports game. He was sitting in that chair for about 5 days. Well, my brother ended up forcing him to go into the hospital, saying, "You're going to die in this chair." The doctor literally said that you probably would have died in the next couple of days. Your father would have died. Well, he was rushed into surgery.
dude, you have a flesh-eating disease and you're just chilling on your chair. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
About 17 surgeries, about 19 days. Ended up being in the hospital for a long time. They had to do a lot of different surgeries. Had to learn how to walk and talk and everything. He had a trach in his throat, and then he had an ostomy bag. And anyway, he ended up being paralyzed from the neck down when he went in to get the surgery after being good for about a year with the ostomy bag. And when he went in to go get the ostomy bag after getting the ostomy bag taken out, he was paralyzed. Well, for that 1 year he was alive, he spent a good majority of his life savings, which was a couple $100,000, I would say. Now, do I know that? No, but I have a lot of knickknacks from a lot of estate sales that he went to. He bought a couple cars throughout that time. He would take me to the mall a couple times a week when I was a preteen, and with all that money being wasted, at least he got to enjoy some of his life savings, but he never really got to enjoy the retirement or the longevity of enjoying your later years like you actually.
That sucks. That fucking blows. This kind of opens your perspective on life, right? Do you really want to work for, well, I mean, you have to work, but you got to make sure your life is not all about your work. And if you ever end up in a company where your employer is making you work all the time and you don't have a personal life, you got to start finding an exit. You have to, I don't know, work on a side hustle. You have to start looking for another job that will offer more freedom, because then these bosses, they don't care about you. Like do you think the employers would care if they know that he had a flesh-eating disease? Fuck no, they don't give a damn. They're just trying to make money and fuck you off, right?
Work towards. Never really got to see
Sad to see people die.
his first few children, but not me or his grandchildren, like many people aspire to witness and be able to see. Now, with him being paralyzed from the neck down, he ended up actually took a huge toll on my family. Not only myself, because I was young, didn't really fully get the whole grasp of the situation, what was going on. I didn't get the full information, being that I was so young, and it was somewhat kept from me for mental reasons and just trying to keep my youth, which I appreciate now that I'm older and I'm an adult. But I still saw it all, and kids see a lot more than you like to believe they do, and they are a lot smarter. They understand a lot more than people and adults like to think. So my brother and my mom had to completely devote themselves to be nurses, and my dad wanted to die at home. He didn't want to die at the hospital, and the fact that he was kept on.
Okay, that's pretty. I mean, I want to say like, nah, man. If you're financially burdening your family, just kill yourself. But a lot of people are scared to kill themselves, right? Like, oh God, I don't want to die at a hospital. I want to die where I grew up in. I want to die where I built this home. I want to, die where I feel it's nostalgic or in a place where I have sentimental value to. I think you could do that. I think if it was up to me, I would just buy a bunch of sleeping pills and just go and just die at home in peace.
Surviving, they actually had a tattoo on a cross saying he was a miracle man, because that's what the doctor called him after all those surgeries and somehow not dying. And even being so, I saw one of the most strongest men in my life paralyzed from the neck down, and he would constantly wake up and not know where he was. He was on some of the highest medications, and
Oh,
he ended up over the course of a few years spending pretty much the entirety of his life savings on medical expenses, trying to save himself, ending up just being pretty much a living vegetable in the most torturous way you could think of. Anytime he got a fly on him, he had the possibility of hitting maggots. It actually happened once when the back door was left open in the summer when we were letting the dogs out, and when the dogs ran away, whatever. We ended up getting the dog, but regardless, that's a whole situation that was a whole nother mess. We had nurses come to my house multiple times throughout the week. We had pretty much the entirety of my living room turned into a nurse's station with beeps and boops and the hospital TV stations constantly on, just the cable stations, and that's if he ever wanted the channels changed, he had to ask us. He couldn't move anything underneath his neck. He could only move his neck and his fingers a little bit, and he ended up dying um, about 6 feet from me when I was sleeping on the couch the day before I turned 15. Now, I was more so satisfied that he was finally out of his torturous position in life, and he actually was able to find peace in death more than he was able to find it in any sense of retirement or longevity of living. After working back-breaking hours, being the actual hard-working dirty hand, dirty job man, doing what he had to do to provide for his family, so his family didn't have to struggle. Back when the economy actually, benefited and would like award a man for doing so, he ended up also facing the last few years of his life in the most treacherous positions. Before he got sick, he saw himself losing it all, dove down into addiction, which is substance abuse, already affecting his family and his relationships around him, which is again a more common story of America if you hear in the most more media, songs, movies, and the common actual reality of what you see amongst the people and your peers around you, maybe even yourself. You maybe even relate to some of the story. And then not only that, he ended up actually getting the most pain I've ever seen somebody go through in my personal life, as well as again extremely affect for the rest of people around of his
oh my god, that is so sad. This is why you shouldn't dedicate your life to something that's unimportant. If you're doing something that you absolutely despise and you're doing it for a long ass time, drop it. If you hated your job that's earning you $500,000 a year, drop it. All right, it's not worth giving up your. You don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. As a matter of fact, like my uncle died and my uncle was taking care of my aunt, but he just died randomly one day on a whim, and then now my aunt is cooked, and she has to be sent to a retirement home. It's kind of, and but then they lived a pretty fulfilling life. They have kids. I wouldn't say they have good kids. They have pretty shitty kids. Um, but they traveled all over the world. They enjoyed their retirement. They hung out. They argue, but it was fun for them in a strange way. Maybe they hooked up or something after. That's how they make up after their fights. But at least they didn't waste their good times on working at a job that they despise. I think that's very important, and people need to realize that your time spent and how you want to spend your life is very important, because you could make what $5 million, but if you're working 80 hours a week and then you couldn't spend any time with your family and friends and all you're doing is work, and you don't even have time to spend your money too, by the way, you're best off dead, right?
families, his family and friends' lives. And when he was very sick, none of his friends really came to visit him. They all used to make this excuse where I don't want to remember him like that. We all know he's going to pass away, and I don't want to remember him in this bad position, being damn near death.
That's true. Yeah, that's also another thing. You will know who your friends are when they come visit you on your deathbed. How many, realistically, how many of your friends will come visit you when you're dying? Just look at your roster of friends and try to see which one of them will come look at you and talk to you at your final hour.
Vegetable. But he was smart enough and was still alive enough and still there enough in his head to realize that when people actually you need them to be there for you, they will not be there for you. And now,
Oh,
in terms of the whole American dream, I've seen the American dream be accomplished and be swept up from someone's feet, and then whether you want to call it God or just the inherent life path that some people are granted, I saw that be some of the most torturous, hell-like ways that it could go. Just one of the people that I still to this day look up to and will always look up to and see be one of the strongest miracle men I will ever know. And I constantly go and visit his grave, and I talk to him and my mom at the gravesite sometimes. Although me and mom used to agree that they're not really there at the grave. Not really sure how I am currently with my whole faith, but in terms of the whole employment, in terms of the whole, working your ass off to make a dollar to provide for other people, and with other people not really seeming to care about you, it really goes a whole lot of ways in terms of how this story kind of has affected me and has made me look at life. Now, some of you guys might say, well, Josh, you can't just not give up, not work at all. And I do work, but I don't think that people have a very good, healthy grasp and mindset around work. I feel like we
yeah, you don't want to make work the only thing about you. You should go find hobbies outside of work, right? Don't after you work, don't come home and sleep, and then you wake up and then you go to bed and sleep. I know guys that once they come home from work, they go to their couch, sleep, wake up, eat dinner, brush their teeth, go back to sleep. That is such a dead life. I will kill myself if I lived a life like that.
been kind of swayed to be more of a slave-minded society, and we just say, well, you got to make a dollar, you got to earn a dollar, you got to do what you got to do. But there are so many ways to make a dollar these days, and although it's not easy, although the dollar is constantly getting less and less valued, and the devaluation of the dollar, the inflation is making the dollar harder to really keep or hold or even care about. Definitely is something that I think many people need to reframe in their mind because they don't really have some of these experiences. They might only see these stories. We see movies of the people going, risking it all. And we don't see a lot of these movies, people who risked it all and they lost it, which is a lot more stories than you like to believe. So, what are your personal thoughts, opinions regarding the story? This is how I was able to witness my father, and I'm sharing most of what I can, personally remember in the story. But in terms of everything, this is obviously a different viewing depending on who you're asking. If you were to ask my brother, my sister, or my mother when she was still alive, they would probably have a different story because they view people from a different frame, and that's how the world is. We all have a different view of the world, and this is just my telling of my father's story through my glasses. So, hope you enjoyed. I hope to see you next one. Thank you so much for the support I've been receiving through the channel. I do see that these conversation style videos where I just kind of sit down and talk more about my life stories and stuff that maybe some
Yeah, this is super sad. I remember, I mean, I talked to my grandma, and then she said, "Oh, I regret not traveling. I regret not doing a lot of things. I regret not like playing some instruments or whatever. Like, no, I'm too old to do this. I'm too old to that. There's a lot of regret. You got to do it. If there's something for you to do, just do it. Don't be afraid of embarrassment, right? Like I started learning the guitar, right? And I was playing it, and then everybody would just shit on me and laugh at me because first off, right, it would be like my first month playing the guitar, but they would just laugh and shit on me for it, like, "Oh my god, haha, you don't even know how to play, haha, you're oh man, why do you even do it? You're just wasting time. Yeah, you just wait, go get another job, make more money." Yeah, but and okay, all right, I just ignore the noise. I find more fulfillment in learning a guitar than I would if I were to find a part-time job. I find more fulfillment in me making these videos than I would at making a little more money. Because if I make more money, nothing changes. Realistically, nothing changes. I do want the things that I want that you can get with money are really expensive, and it will supersede it goes beyond a part-time job. I need to win big at the stock market, or I need to win big in the casino in order to get these things, or I gotta have a business where I pull off some miracle shenanigans. I know a lot of people that are smarter than me, and their business attempt failed. Okay. I also tried some businesses before. Some of them okay, they're whatever, right? But I have more success than my smarter friends, but it's not enough to get me the things I want that you can get financially, right? So unless if something pops off, I don't think I want to sacrifice my life for so much uncertainty. Sure, there's a risk for everything, right? But I think I much rather enjoy my time doing the things that I love than to just spend every inch of my time on making money. Because I have hobbies, and I think if people have hobbies, all my miserable friends that are spending their time working extra hours at other jobs, making part-time money, would be more happier. Because I'm like, I think in terms of happiness level, I'm probably like top 10 or top 5 in my friend group. A lot of my friends are pretty damn miserable working at their job because then they feel like they're spending their youth doing nothing. Now they have money. They're like, well, okay, what can I get with this money? Can I get more happiness? I mean, I don't have to cook dinner anymore, but I'm a pretty good cook. I cook better than some of these restaurants, and I'm essentially paying for lower quality food. Is that worth it? Oh, geez. You know, just take 1 hour, turn off everything, turn on one light, look at a blank wall, and just think deeply about all these things and realize what's worth it and what's not worth it.